Okay, hello everybody. Yep, live from the void, number 5. This is the Bewarecast. Hope you're all doing well. Just leave a message just to let me know you can see me and hear me okay. You should be able to, but you know, just confirm it for me. And yeah, we'll just give it a minute or two just to let everybody file in, everybody who wants to come and join in. Oscar, good to have you back. Hello, Contingency as well, good to have you back. Cool, yep, Contingency says everything's working fine, great, thank you very much. Oscar says, I've now put on a notification. If I pass out again, no more beer and broads on Mondays. Is that why you weren't here last Monday then, Oscar? I did notice a distinct lack of Oscar last Monday, so that's what you were up to. Yeah, maybe not on Mondays. Maybe have a day off. Yep, Contingency, everything's working. Yep, you said, oh yeah, this one's going to be a long one considering the Last and First Men reading along with the tier list of the punks. It won't be that long. I mean, I'm not going to be reading the whole book. I'm going to read some of it. That's what this stream was going to be originally. I was just going to make it like a reading and a discussion of Last and First Men, which I've got here. But my recent Cyberpunk video is doing quite well. So I thought I would shamelessly try and cash in on that just a little bit more by making this one a punks, as in types of, genres with the suffix punks, I thought I'd do a tier list and rank them. Now, obviously, I'm not doing every single one because I'm not really familiar with every single one. So you can see at the bottom there, I've got 9 different ones, which are the ones I'm more familiar with. So we'll be doing that for the most part, and then we'll cap it off with a bit of a reading of Last and First Men. And then from next week onwards, we'll make it more of a reading and discussion of that book. But I just wanted to do this tier list just because, like I said, the Cyberpunk video is doing quite well. El Claudio, good to have you. Oscar sends a super chat. Thank you very much. Very kind of you. I'm not passed out this time. The broads woke me up. Good stuff. They literally did the Wake Up Babe meme. Wake Up Babe Newbie Wearcast live stream. Ian, good evening. Good evening to you too. Cool. El Claudio, searching for the Last and First Men. There's a cover of the book with Walter White. I saw that. That's weird. It's got 2... Yeah, he's at the bottom. And it's got 2, like, aliens either side of him. How on earth has that come about? Is Last and First Men in the public domain? And that's why people are, independent publishing companies are able to just publish it. And for some bizarre reason, they decided to put Walter White on the cover. That's weird. I did see that when I was looking for covers to put on the thumbnail for this stream. I saw it. I was like, that's just got to be a joke or something. Weird. Last and First contingency. Last and First Men is connected with Breaking Bad, confirmed by Last and First Men. Maybe, yeah. Are they? Are they in the same canon? I've not read it. I've not read Last and First Men. Does Walter White turn up somewhere and say, "Let's cook to the future humans"? He might. We'll read it and find out. Let's see. Yeah, we've got a few viewers. Yeah, we've given it 4 minutes. I guess we can crack on. So, okay, as I was saying before, this video is probably gonna not... Well, we'll see how long it goes for. The way I'm kind of planning it is maybe like the first 2/3 of it will be this tier list, depending on how much I ramble on. And the final bit, we'll just cap it off with a bit of a reading of Last and First Men. Strange combination, but the thing is, I already had it as Last and First Men reading, and so in case anyone was looking forward to that, I didn't want to just switch it up on them at the last minute and say, oh, actually, no, I'm going to be doing this tier list instead. So we're doing both. Yeah, we're going to do both in this stream. And yeah, because that Cyberpunk video is, by my channel standards, it's doing really well. It's got nearly 4,000 views now. So the new style and new direction seems to be resonating with people, which is cool. And like I said, I'll be shamelessly cashing in on that by doing this live stream talking about the various punks, as in the subgenres with the suffix punk. So you've got like cyberpunk, let's see, hang on. Okay, here we go. I think that's, yeah, there we go. So we've got cyberpunk, post-cyberpunk, steampunk, biopunk, atom punk, desert punk, what's that one say? Solar punk, deco punk, and sea punk / ocean punk. There are more than that, but I'm not really familiar with them. And the way I'm going to be ranking them basically is by 2 different criteria. I was originally just going to do it on what I thought looked cool. Does it look cool? Yes, but then I think they all look cool, so they'd all end up in the A or S tier. So I'm going to be ranking them by 2 criteria. The first is, aesthetic appeal. So yeah, does it look cool? The second criteria that I'll be ranking them by is, would I like to live in that setting? So would I like to live in a cyberpunk world or a steampunk world, etc.? So that should give a bit of balance, because a lot of these places I probably wouldn't want to find myself in them. So let's get started. And I'll just quickly double check one thing before we crack on. And yep, okay. So what we're going to do, we'll start with Cyberpunk. Now, Cyberpunk. Would I want to live in a Cyberpunk world? Probably not. Is the aesthetic appeal very cool? I think it is. But things looking cool isn't really enough to make me want to live there, because there's a lot of bad things that come with that kind of setting. There's the corporations running everything. There's the type of crime, the type of criminals you've got. It's typically a high crime setting, Cyberpunk. Like I said in my recent video, Western Cyberpunk tends to be like that. High crime rates, high tech, low life. That's generally the aesthetic. I don't think I would want to live in it, but it does have a pretty cool look to it. What do you guys think? Where should Cyberpunk go? I'm going to put it in B. It'll be a hard place to live. Looks kind of cool. Yeah, that's going to go in B to start with. So now we've got post-Cyberpunk. El Claudio says it should go in C tier. Interesting. I've put it in B, so I've put it one above where you've put it. I put it in B. I think I'll leave it in B for now. Post-Cyberpunk is things like Ghost in the Shell, apparently. And that tends to be a future where technology is still, it's infused in every part of life, but it's more seamless. It's less controversial. It's just kind of there. Ghost in the Shell, there's not really any kind of undercurrent of we need to shed all of this. We need to get away from all of this. It's dystopian and horrible. No, it tends to be more, this is just how it is. Which is probably the kind of cyberpunk, post-cyberpunk, that I would prefer to live in as opposed to, cyberpunk proper. So I think that one will go. I don't know if it can go in S tier, because I feel like if you have a lot of this stuff implanted in you, there's going to be a lot of surveillance. Either from the company that makes the parts that you have inside you, or from the government. So I don't think I'd want to put it in S tier, because none of that sounds like S tier stuff to me. But it's less painful than the cyberpunk setting, so I think I'll put that in A tier. It all looks very nice. Everyone just kind of gets on with it. They all accept it. If you're born into that world, and if that's all you know, it's probably not going to seem too bad. Whereas if you're born into the cyberpunk, like Cyberpunk 2077 or Blade Runner, you're going to be very aware that it's quite a horrible world. So that one can go into A tier. Now steampunk, I know where I'm going to put steampunk straight away, because steampunk is, unlike cyberpunk, it's all about good vibes. It's not typically dystopian, those stories. They tend to be more fantastical, and it's all quite nice, really. It's sort of, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like a Victorian-inspired fantastical setting or settings in these stories. And there's a lot of steam-powered machinery, and, you fly your blimp to work and stuff like that, which sounds pretty cool. Sounds a lot nicer than the previous two. And I can't really see any downsides of that, to be honest. A lot of people really enjoy it as well. I mean, in the town that I lived in, up until a couple of years ago, they used to host a steampunk festival for, I think, one weekend a year or something like that. And my fiancée and I went along one time. And we saw, everybody was in the get-up. They'd all made their own costumes and everything. Some of them had made their own vehicles. They'd kitted out cars to look like steampunk vehicles. Steam-powered. I don't think they were actually steam-powered. But, they looked the part. And it was really cool. It's all about having a good time, that one. So that one is going to go into S tier, because it's nice and it's not dystopian like cyberpunk. Next we've got Biopunk. Now here you can see I've got Nemesis from Resident Evil. I consider Resident Evil to be Biopunk. Now when you hear that, you might be thinking Biopunk? No, it's survival horror. Well, the thing is, survival horror is the type of game that it is, but Biopunk is the type of setting that it is. So, it's kind of like saying Cyberpunk 2077, the type of game it is it's a first-person shooter or an RPG, role-playing game, but the setting is cyberpunk. So it's the same there. So Resident Evil has a biopunk setting. Excuse me. And you've got other things in the biopunk genre as well. I'm just going to have a quick look on my phone because I made some notes just to refer to quickly. The Fly as well. That's all sort of bio. It's all about mutations and biotechnology going wrong and stuff like that. And Resident Evil is, it's all about the manufacture of viruses and it getting out of control, stuff like that. And also in later games, you've got naturally occurring things like the Las Plagas in Resident Evil 4, I think that's in. So it's all biological. Living in a world like that isn't really, it's not really more than a stone's throw away from the world that we live in now, because we have, manufactured viruses, we have things that grow in nature that can do horrible things to you. So it's not much different to the one we live in now. It's just a bit more heightened, I suppose. Those types of worlds, Resident Evil, The Fly, stuff like that, along those lines. So with it being so close to our world, but just a bit more only slightly more exaggerated, that's a scary thing. I think I will put that one into, I think that one can, no, not B, because I think we'll go C tier, because it's because it's, I don't know why I want to put it there, to be honest. It could go in D, to be honest. But I'll leave it in C for now, just based on my scattered reasoning that I had there just then. Next we've got Atom Punk. I didn't know Fallout. I'd never even heard of Atom Punk until I started looking up all these different genres. Atom Punk, it refers to, atom as in splitting the atom, nuclear stuff, nuclear fallouts, things like that. So the Fallout series is the one that comes to mind, really, with that one. So that is a very scary world to be in, because it is genuinely post-apocalyptic. The apocalypse has happened. But then again, usually in these stories, the apocalypse is something from way back in the past. It doesn't really have much bearing on people's lives. So it's not something you're going to be in constant fear of. It's just going to be more like a historical event that took place. So it's not too scary to live in. You could probably get by. You'll have to contend with things like radiation poisoning, mutated beings coming after you. So it's a dangerous world, but the world we live in now is kind of dangerous, really. So it would just be a slightly different version of what we've got now, like the biopunk, I suppose. So I think that can probably go into C tier as well. And also, aesthetically, I've been neglecting the aesthetics a little bit on these last few, but aesthetically, it's very cool. The Fallout games do look cool. I think I'll stick with putting that one in C for now. Right, I'll just have a quick look and see. Look at a few comments. Contingency for post-cyber, I'd say B or C. Yeah, fair enough. I put it in A. Just, I think it's aesthetically pleasing, and it's also seems like it would be more peaceful. Not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but relatively harmonious, I think. El Claudio, so Jurassic Park is part of the setting. That would be part of Biopunk, I suppose, wouldn't it? Because that's messing about with DNA, genes. It all gets out of hand. Yeah, yeah. Depends if you want to live in a world with dinosaurs running around. But then again, the most recent film showed us that dinosaurs aren't part of the world anymore. That was the whole thing about the previous 3 films was, oh, dinosaurs are among us now, we're going to have to learn how to live with them. But then this most recent one was just, oh no, they all died. So, yeah, you don't have to live with dinosaurs. They would be cool to see though. If you can just go to a park that's being well run, then I think that would be quite interesting. I should have put Jurassic Park comes under the Biopunk. Got it in C. You know, I may move that actually, because now that you've brought that up, the ability to see dinosaurs does warrant a slightly higher place on the tier list, I think. So I would probably go... I mean, there's a lot of risks involved, but there's risks involved in everything, really. So I think I'm going to go with putting it in B. Yeah, you swayed me a little bit on that one. Nicely done. Let's see. The contingency says, yeah, we can split the atom and it will cause utopia for all the wrong reasons, yeah. Usually the pursuit of utopia, what's that saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah, there's always somebody wants to create a utopia and they never have a good methodology for doing it. El Claudio says, between a post-apocalyptic and utopian setting, or both at the same time, I will put Atom Punk in B or A. Yeah, fair enough. You can get... Well, I mean, I don't believe utopia is ever possible. Not without human beings being severely modified. Because we'll always find, not to sound anti-human and stuff like that. I'm just being realistic about the nature of a lot of people. They'll always find a reason not to like other people. I mean, that's just how we are, how we've always been. It's kind of what allowed us to make it this far, I suppose, in a funny way, just by recognizing danger from others throughout history. It's kind of been worked to our benefit, really. So let's continue on. We've got a few more. We've got desert punks. Now that's stuff like Dune and Mad Max, I suppose. They would come under some of these subgenres. Do kind of seem like they're splitting hairs to me a little bit. I guess it's just a case of they belong to several subgenres, but to me there's not really a world of difference between desert punk and atom. But well, no, I suppose there is really, because there doesn't have to have been like a nuclear fallout or anything for you to reach a desert punk world. I mean, Dune is just another planet. Arrakis is just naturally a desert planet. There was no war that made it that way, I don't think. I could be making a real fool of myself here. I'm not massively familiar with the Dune lore, so if I'm wrong there, please do point it out in the comments. But yeah, I suppose there is difference between desert punk and atom punk there. So desert punk, aesthetically kind of boring, because it's just a desert, which is cool in its own. There was nothing really like, as far as I know, when Dune was made, when it was written, there was nothing really like that before. There may have been some minor, lesser-known pulp stories from the 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe, that it inspired, but I don't know of any of those. But aesthetically, personally, I don't really find desert settings that interesting. Sandy deserts, I mean, because the term desert isn't just sandy areas like the Sahara and stuff like that. Desert also refers to places like Antarctica, which is basically just a barren land, is what desert means. We just think of it as meaning sandy places. So I mean, my favourite sci-fi horror film is The Thing, and that's set in Antarctica, and I really like the aesthetic there. So I'm not personally that interested in sandy desert settings as an aesthetic. And would I want to live there? No, I don't want to live in the desert because there's no water. It's really hard to live. The are they called the Fremen in Dune? You know, they are kind of native to Arrakis, and they don't have great lives really, from what I can see. So I don't think I would want to live there at all. That is going to go into the bottom tier. That's going to go in D tier. I should have put an F tier, actually. I would have put that down there in F tier. And that's not to say I don't really like Dune or anything. I'm interested in the story of Dune. I do find it fascinating, even though I've not read... You know, I've read... I'm ashamed to say it. I've read some of the first book. And that's it. You know, it's a big, thick tome, the first Dune. And I never managed to get through it. It's kind of, you know, it's a sort of heresy, I suppose, because most people, they rave about Dune. I struggled with it, if I'm honest. I do really like the 1980s Dune film directed by David Lynch, but that departs from the book quite a bit. And I watched is it 2021, the first of the recent Dune films, and I kind of checked out halfway through it. I wasn't. It just didn't engage me. There's something about that type of setting and that that sort of thing. I just can't really get into it personally. So that's why that one's going into D tier. I mean, obviously you'll have your own thoughts on that. Let me know. Let's check a few comments before we carry on. So let's see. El Claudio, yep, we've had that. Contingency. Actually, in Dune lore, Arrakis used to be a lush world that got turned into the desert hellscape it is because of the introduction of sandworms. Oh, okay, alright, I didn't know that. Yeah, that makes sense. But with it being so lush, how did the sandworms... do the sandworms... No, they don't eat sand, do they? They live in sand because you have to... It's like when you're walking through the desert, they sense rhythmic vibrations, don't they? So that's why they have to do a special sort of... You can't just step like you normally can because they'll sense it. You have to walk in a funny way, don't you? So you don't attract them. So I guess they do eat... I guess they're carnivorous, aren't they? But... yeah, so okay. So I can see how it would move from being a lush jungle world to being a desert. Because if they just combed over the whole place and ate everything organic, it would eventually just turn into a sandy hellscape, wouldn't it? So that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, thanks for filling me in on that. El Claudio says Dune in desert punk. It's more like noble punk instead, and yes, eventually the planet Arrakis turns green again, by the way. Right, I see. Noble punk, is that a real one, or is that one that you've just come up with the term? I suppose noble punk, it comes from, all the characters, they belong to houses, don't they? It's all about nobility. They're royalty, aren't they? Yeah, there's the... My memory is terrible. What's the name of the house of the big fat gross guy who needs machinery to carry him around? Baron Harkonnen, that's it. Yeah, you've got like the House of Harkonnen and all that sort of thing. Noble punk, yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't. Is that a known subgenre, or is that one you've just made up? Because it seems like people can just make them up. There's all these. Well, there was some that I purposely left out of this video. There was like splatterpunk and stuff like that, which basically just seems like slasher films to me. I don't know why you would create a new category called splatterpunk for that. It seems like people are just coming up with stuff to add punk to it. It's like there's lots of music genres out there that just add the suffix core to them, like nerdcore and all kinds of weird stuff like that. So I mean, I guess they are their own subgenres. If you create something unique. You can't quite pigeonhole it, or not pigeonhole it, but you can't quite categorize it. Then I guess you can just come up with your own thing, your own category for it, I suppose. There's like clock punk as well. I've got one here, like, I don't know, The Prestige from 2006. I've seen that film. It's a Christopher Nolan film. Clock punk seems, I mean, that's just, I don't know, some of these just seem like a bit of a stretch to me. Like Wasteland punk. How is that different from, I mean, I guess there are differences between atom punk and desert punk. So you could split that even further by calling it wasteland punk if there's no nuclear fallout that's taken place, or if there's no desert, I suppose. But there's hope punk as well, and the Good Place TV series. I'm just looking on my phone at all these different ones. Hope punk, and some of them just seem a bit, but noble punk, could be interesting. Desert punk, Sorry, I'm just catching up with what I've read so far. Oni Yo, good to have you. I think you're new. I don't think I've seen you before, so it's really cool to have you join us. There are really interesting deserts around the world too, like the Gobi Desert is sand dunes in a frozen waste. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, the Gobi Desert. That's is it Mongolia? I think because I was reading about the. It's called I think it's called the Mongolian sandworm or something, which not related to the sandworms of Dune, but it's a cryptid called I think it's called a Mongolian sandworm, something like that, and that's supposed to live in the Gobi Desert. I suppose the Gobi Desert is interesting. You always found Dune to be boring as well. I mean, personally, I don't know if I find it boring. I've just had a really hard time getting invested in it. Just down to my personal preferences, to be honest. I'm glad I'm not the only one that's struggled with it, though. And you like the TV miniseries. A few people have recommended that to me, actually. I mean, like I said before, I really like the film, the David Lynch directed film. So I might have to check out the miniseries as well. Contingency, Wasteland punk. What if there's a different element in each story? We make a punk. Like if there was a book of punks, it would be punk. Yeah, that's it. It's easy just to go crazy with it. To be honest, you can just pick any minor element from any story and say, oh, it's this punk. It's like if you decided to call, you watched Mad Max or something, and then you just chose the fact that they were wearing leather or something. You called it leather punk or something like that. It can get a bit much, to be honest. That's why some of these don't take them massively seriously, personally. Ex Gilles News, hello, good to have you again. Mongolian deathworm, that's it, not Mongolian sandworm. Yeah, it's the Mongolian deathworm. I was reading about that a couple of years ago, actually, because I went through a phase of really. I mean, I used to have the channel's still there, but before Bewarecast, I had a channel. It was called Cryptid Central. It's still on YouTube. I haven't taken it down or anything. I've not made any videos on it for a really long time, but I do have a video about the Mongolian deathworm, and I went through a phase of really being into cryptids and the paranormal, UFOs, all that kind of thing. So I started that channel to make videos about that because I was really into it. But then, I discovered All Tomorrow, started the Bewarecast. It was Beware the Q at the start, Bewarecast. So I carried on with this channel rather than that one. But yeah, I was really into cryptids for a really long time. Still am. Yes, El Claudio says a contingency, unironically, yes. Yeah, you're just replying to his most recent one, I suppose. Right, let's get back to the tier list. We've got 3 more to do. So we've got Solar Punk here. I'm just going to have a quick drink. Bear with me for 1 second, then we'll carry on. Right, we're back. So, solar punk. I like the idea of solar punk. It seems like it would be a nice place to live, and it does have a nice aesthetic as well. Very green, very, you're taking care of your environment, the world. It's a bit fantastical because, again, I don't believe utopia is ever possible. But it's an interesting. It's a place I would like to live, hypothetically, if it were possible. I would happily live in a solar punk world. I like the idea of getting back to nature and doing things for yourselves. Like I like to grow, in my, as one of my hobbies, I like to grow vegetables. I've got loads of potatoes growing out in the backyard at the moment. Actually, they'll be ready for harvest in, I think, at the end of August or the start of September. That's the harvest time. I like growing my own veg. I like being out in the woods. I like being out in nature. So a solar punk setting sounds like it would be quite ideal for me, really. The reason I don't believe it would be entirely possible is because solar punk stories, like in the icon here, I've got the cover of a book. It's called Ecotopia, and it's by, I think it's Ernest Callenbach, I think is the name of the, let me just quickly double check that. Yes, Ernest Callenbach is the author of that book. It was written back in the 70s, and it is an interesting story, but it's tries to kind of make it look like it's all really easy. Solar punk stories tend to do that. They're like, oh, this is a wonderful heavenly life, no challenges at all. You grow your own veg, you live in your own little cabin or what have you, and everything's great. But it's not possible. Then again, it is fantasy, and most of the things in all of these genres aren't really possible, so I shouldn't hold that against it. But aesthetically, lovely, very nice. Would I like to live there? Yes, I would. So that is going to go up into S tier with steampunk. Those are the two places, the two settings I really wouldn't mind living in. Next we have Deco punk. I really like Art Deco style. It's stuff that's, and the more retro stuff that's made in more recent times or in modern times, it's inspired by Art Deco, which is sort of from the 1920s, 1930s. Some examples, I've got a couple just on my phone just for reference. So like BioShock that I've got there in the icon, that is very Art Deco. It's inspired by 1930s, sort of just the overall look, the overall aesthetic. It's quite ornate, and I'm sure you all know what the sort of 20s, 30s things look like. The buildings, the cars, stuff like that. It's all inspired by Art Deco. Deco punk, never heard of it before until I started doing the little bit of research I did to start this tier list. It could be good because I honestly think there's two periods in history that would be pretty not ideal to live in, but very quite healthy to live in. If maybe not, I don't know. It's hard to describe, but I think the 1930s level of technology was a good level of technology. It was before the atom bomb, because that came about. Well, it was late 30s, wasn't it? So yeah, on the cusp of the 40s that was, but it was all obviously still very analog, and you weren't bombarded with just constant information and stuff like you are these days. The human brain has trouble coping with that. That's why a lot of people, they get addicted to social media, they get addicted to doom scrolling and just being obsessed with staring at their phone, because the brain doesn't really know how to properly filter all of that and deal with it properly. The 30s, you didn't have that problem. All you had was the radio, the newspaper. Again, obviously there's lots of downsides now to living in that era. You wouldn't have a lot of the comforts and conveniences that we have now. And that's why my other choice for like the perfect level of technology is the mid-90s. So we'll say 1990 actually. 1990 till 2005. I think that's the perfect level of technology, because you still had, things were computerized. You still had the internet. It was in a much more primitive kind of form to what it is now, but you didn't have it in your pocket with you all the time. You could just go on the computer and do what you needed to do on the internet, but it didn't follow you around everywhere. It wasn't integrated into absolutely everything, like, if you want to buy something from this shop, you need to download the app and stupid stuff like that. I think the perfect level of tech was 1990 to 2005, but that's just me, and that's nothing to do with this. I don't know why I spent ages talking about it. But yeah, anyway, back to Deco Punk. It looks cool, aesthetically pleasing. Would I want to live there? Another example of Deco Punk, I suppose, would be Batman the Animated Series, because it's not quite clear when that's set. I mean, he's got, in the Batcave, he's got computers and stuff, so it's modern, but the cars in Gotham City and the clothing styles and everything are very, very 1920s, 1930s. Like the cars they drive around in, they look like the old, like Packard cars. I don't know if you've ever seen them before, but a lot of them look like that, and it's hard to pin down exactly when it is. It's got a mix of 90s and 30s technology, but I would consider that to be sort of Art Deco. Just it just popped into my mind there. I think that would be quite nice to live in, actually. I think I wouldn't mind living there. There'll be some downsides, but then it's typically high tech, though, isn't it? Like like these Deco Punk type settings. They'll have technology and stuff. They're relatively pretty advanced, really. Sometimes more advanced than we are now, but it just has a different look. It's not digital. It's Art Deco and more analog. So I think I probably would quite like to live there. Not as much as these two, I don't think, because typically the stories tend to be quite violent. There's a lot of crime there, but then again, there's crime everywhere. But it's not as utopian as these two, so I think I'll put that one in A tier. We'll just have a quick look at the comments. Let's see. Let's go back to where I was on the comments. Sorry, just bear with me. I'm just trying to catch up on what I've read. Okay, Onio says, the miniseries, I'm guessing this is about Dune, the miniseries is very made-for-TV 1990 show, but it's fun, like when sci-fi still tried to make good original films like The Monkey King. Yes, that sounds right up my alley, to be honest. They really had a lot of imagination back in the 90s, didn't they? I think the fact that it was all quite low-tech, they couldn't just spend millions on CGI back then, and doing films, making TV shows back in the 90s and before then as well, it kind of forced them to be really creative. They had to really think around the problems that they had of, okay, we've got this in the script, this is great, I'd really, we're going to make this, but how do we actually do it? Nowadays it'd be, yep, this is in the script, CGI. But back then it was, how can we do it? They'd have to come up with all kinds of creative, like in Alien, where they're first coming out, they're first waking up, and the pod things are opening up. They only had the budget. My brother told me about this actually last week, and at the time they only had the budget to make 2 of those capsules, so they had to have mirrors there. And when you look, I think is it Alien or Aliens? I can't remember which one it is, but they had to have mirrors there so that it looked like there were more than there actually were. and that's quite a creative way of doing that, and it's convincing. And you look at it and you don't think that's mirrored. You look at it and it looks perfectly fine. So they had to be very, very creative back then. Yeah, you're right. Oscar says, curious for those who know Scorn, what punk would that be? Biopunk. Probably biopunk. I'm not that familiar with Scorn, but it's set. I think it's on a hellish alien world, isn't it? I suppose it depends how the creatures, the things, whatever they are, got there, where they're created. I suppose if they are a result of genetic manipulation and stuff, it would come under biopunk. I suppose All Tomorrows is biopunk in a way, maybe, because it's all about the genetic tampering and stuff like that, tampering with biology. So that may come under biopunk as well. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what people think. Which punk does Scorn fit into? Let us all know in the comments. Let's see. Onio says you might be interested in something called agrarianism. Agrarianism? It's basically the 1800s version of solar punk. Cool. Yeah, agrarianism. Yeah, that's what solar punk is living a fairly agrarian lifestyle, I suppose. So yeah, that sounds quite nice actually. I don't know if the the Amish people in America, do they live? Is their lifestyle agrarianism? Because they do live a very 19th century lifestyle, really, don't they? They don't accept any technology. But then again, you've seen them kind of talking to people with smartphones. I don't know if they use smartphones. Yeah, it's interesting to think about though. Agrarianism, yeah, cool. Thanks for the recommendation. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Oscar, contingency replying to Oscar says flesh punk or biomech punk. Yeah, see, we can just make stuff up. We can just make up any punk. But then again, I don't know if flesh punk is an actual thing. Probably biopunk. To be honest, seems like biopunk is the one that Scorn would fit into. It would slot in there into that one the easiest, I think. Oni says, I like retro punk, the 50s style idea of the future, like the Jetsons and Fallout. Yeah, that is cool. That's a very cool. It's a nice aesthetic. As long as it's pre-apocalypse, not post-apocalypse, apocalyptic. The Jetsons, that always looked appealing. Fallout, like in Fallout 4, where you get to play for a little bit in the, just before the bombs drop. It seems very, very nice, to be honest. It is essentially the 1950s, but futuristic. I like retro-futurism. So, yeah, retro-punk. Is it retro-punk or is it just retro-futurism? Could be retro-punk. We're inventing all kinds of punks here. Oni says, I like that films back then still used actual sets the actors could interact with. Yeah, I love that. I think it's really charming when... so this is why I really like... I'm from England, so I have a fondness for old BBC productions, and particularly I really like old Doctor Who from the 60s to the 80s. It was all, wobbly wooden sets that the walls would shake as they walked past them because they were so cheaply made and painted and stuff. It was like that a lot in Red Dwarf as well. That's a sitcom, which is a sci-fi sitcom. You may know it. I don't know how well known it is outside of Britain, but I do have a special, particular fondness for practical sets rather than green screen, because you can always tell when it's green screen, can't you? That's the thing. That's why I think people like practical sets, because even though it can look cheap, it can look cheesy and silly. Your brain is very aware that you're looking at something that actually exists. It's a real thing, even if it's not particularly convincing as what it's meant to be. The brain still prefers it because it's real. It's a physical object, a physical thing that exists in the physical space. Whereas when you're looking at CGI, green screen, it can look as, as advanced as, as advanced as it gets. But you're still very aware that you're looking at something that's CGI and isn't real. So, the brain prefers practical. Mine certainly does. I think it was Alien that did the mirror trick to create the ring of sleep pods. Yeah, that sounds right. It's very, it's just they were forced to be very creative back then. They couldn't rely on CGI. Had to do it all in the physical space. And the Amish are basically agrarianists. Yeah, I thought so. Seems like a nice lifestyle, to be honest. There's certain things I would... right before this stream, I've got a bit of a headache at the moment, so, I popped a couple of aspirin. And if I lived in the 19th century, in the 1800s, I couldn't do that. Something as simple as that. There's a lot of benefits, but there are a lot of negatives as well. So it's kind of... it's a trade-off. Right, we'll get back to the tier list, and we'll do this very last one, which is Ocean Punk / Sea Punk. So in the icon there, in the little picture, I've got Subnautica, which is a really good game, by the way. I really like playing Subnautica. It's a relaxing game. I have a fondness for the ocean and ocean life and stuff like that. The marine world is particularly relaxing and interesting to me. If I want to relax, I'll put on a documentary, about ocean life. I was obsessed with sharks when I was a kid. I've always loved the ocean. So I've got Subnautica in there. A couple of other. Another example of that would probably be the James Cameron film The Abyss. Or any, I don't know, is Jaws sea punk? Probably not. That's probably a bit of a stretch, to be honest. But, ocean punk and sea punk is apparently a thing. Would I want to live in that setting? I suppose if you're living on like a water world or something. That film, the Kevin Costner film, Waterworld, actually, yeah, of course. That would be ocean punk or sea punk. I guess it depends how stable the civilization is that you live in. Is it like one that lives under the waves in a domed underwater city? That'd be quite nice, but I'd always be worried about leaks or cracks in the dome. And then in Waterworld, they all live above the surface of the water, don't they? As much as I love the ocean, I'm quite scared of it because sharks and drowning. So I don't think I would want to live in a sea punk world, personally. Aesthetically, I love it, but practically, would I want to live in one? Probably not. So that's probably going to go into B tier with these two, with the cyberpunk and biopunk. Love the way it looks, wouldn't want to live there. So it gets put right in the middle. So that's pretty much my tier list for now. There are other subgenres with punk, but a lot of them I couldn't really think of any films or games, TV shows, books that fell into them, or they just seemed like too much of a stretch. So I kind of whittled it down to these 9 here. What do you all think of the ranking that I've got? Let's look at some comments. Right, let's see. Contingency says, Subnautica, it's basically Dune if the Butlerian Jihad didn't happen and the old empire still kind of existed. Yeah, it's kind of like an anti-Dune, I suppose, isn't it? Dune is very, very dry, Subnautica's very, very wet. So yeah, I suppose that's it's like the anti-Dune, I think. Yeah. Carl, good to have you. Hello. Says Gotham is 100% Deco. Yeah, it usually is, to be honest. It usually has like an Art Deco kind of. Sometimes it has sort of a gothic look to it, doesn't it? I mean, Batman the Animated Series is definitely more on the Art Deco side of things. Depends on the iteration, I suppose. And then you've got like the Nolan films where Batman Begins was more gothic, but then the second one, it just looked like the city it was filmed in. I think it was filmed in Chicago, and it just... So maybe that was a testament to Batman's skills as a crime fighter. He got it in a few years, got it from looking like a gothic, crime-ridden cesspit into a slick modern city in the space of 3 years. Pretty impressive, actually. Not bad. Not well done, Batman. The contingency says, oh, no, Jaws is 3 guys trapped on a boat to fight a giant monster punk. Oh, of course it is. How silly of me to neglect that one. I should have included that in the tier list, really, shouldn't I? 3 guys trapped on a boat. Yeah. You know, does the film Orca count in that? Yeah, because it just says giant monster, not shark necessarily. Orca could fit in there. We've come up with a new punk subgenre there, I think. Contingency. It's just as valid as all the other ones. Since Oscar says, since the day I saw the anglerfish, I've stayed away from the sea. They terrify me to my core. Yes, do not blame you. You know, that looks... I mean, the anglerfish, it looks like something that was just designed to look as... you know, horrific. I mean, it's got those big teeth, and the, you know, if I'm remembering correctly, it's got like the big bulbous eyes. It's obviously got its protrusion there, the light on the end. That is an anglerfish, isn't it? Yeah, that doesn't look like something that came about naturally to me. That looks like something that somebody sat down and drew it and was like, I'm going to make the scariest looking fish imaginable, and then they made it. That's what it looks like to me. It doesn't look like it should exist. It looks too scary, too horror inspired, the anglerfish, I think. Onio says, I found agrarianism interesting because it was an idea that started around the Industrial Revolution and how technology could be used to better in tune with to get better in tune with nature using that technology. Yeah, that's interesting. So I suppose it was like a reaction to the emergence of the Industrial Revolution. You tend to see that, don't you, with the rise of a new wave of technology, a big change to the status quo. You do see a big number of people just resisting it, kind of outright. Like, you know, obviously back then it was the Industrial Revolution, and agrarianism came about. These days, there's a lot of people who are taking on more of a sort of Luddite attitude towards technology, because everything is becoming, you know, online and digitized. And there's a lot of people who are saying, you know, I'm going to get rid of my smartphone. Apparently, dumb phones are kind of making a bit of a comeback. And then you've got those ones that... Are they called nothing? Are they called nothing phones or something like that? Or maybe it's and there are smartphones that have basically no features at all except phone call, text, and they don't connect to the internet or anything, and they sell. You know, there is a market for it. So there is a sizable number of people resisting what we have now. You know, with the rise of the internet and things like that, a lot of people are saying, no, I don't want that. So agrarianism would be to the Industrial Revolution what the Luddite attitude towards technology today would be. It's interesting to think about. Let's see. Onio, of course, not all... of course, it was all steampunk level technology. Yeah, back then, yeah, they I mean, yeah, I guess the agrarianism and that was they were sort of seeing how they can use modern technology to make their naturalistic life a bit easier, I suppose. Which, you know, we do. I mean, it's kind of silly not to do that. If you have access to technologies that just assist with a more agrarian lifestyle, then it makes sense to do that, rather than say, you know, no, I'm not going to use these tools that are available now because they didn't use them in the past. That's taking it too far. You know, if there's something there that can help, it's silly not to use it. Yeah, Oni also says there's some fun Ocean Punks city builder games. Flotsam and Raft come to mind. Oh, that sounds cool. I like city builder. I mean, I haven't really played any city builder games, but I do like. This isn't city builder, but it's park builder, Jurassic World Evolution. I do like that game. I've been playing that a little bit recently. There's something enjoyable about that, isn't there? Just being able to just create something, make it your own way. Kind of done that in real life, actually, because a couple of weeks ago I bought a fish, a better fighting fish, Siamese fighting fish. He's called Malcolm, and he's a red standard better. And I had fun, you know, scaping his tank that he's in now, choosing the rocks, choosing the plants. I went with a sandy bottom, put a background on as well, just plain blue background. But it's fun, isn't it? It's just fun creating a little thing, a little environment. It's, you know, there's nothing quite like it. It's, you know, I really enjoyed that, so I've kind of done it in real life with that. I enjoy the park builder game, city builder games underwater. They sound brilliant. Flotsam and Raft. I'm gonna have to. I'll look those up. Thanks for the recommendations. Oscar says Jaws. I can only call a creature feature. Yeah. That is definitely the best descriptor for it. You know, but I do like the contingencies. 3 guys trapped on a boat fighting a giant monster punk. Bit of a mouthful, but it certainly gives you a picture of what's going to be happening. Contingency says, in my personal opinion, I can stand the ocean, the shallows at least. When it comes to the deep end, I'm terrified because my brain thinks, oh, you can't see below you? Well, the Kraken's there. Yeah, you know, when I went swimming as a kid once in the ocean, I think we went on holiday to, it's in England, it's called Dorset. It's on the south coast. It's a lovely part of the country. But I went swimming, like swimming, not just paddling. I don't know how old I was, probably 9 years old or something like that. And my brain, you know, when the sun hits the surface of, you know, the rippling water, and it creates that sort of light, those light ripples on the sandy bottom. My brain kept seeing those and telling me that they were tentacles, and I kept, you know, scrambling out of the water and running back on. And then when I calmed down, I was like, it's obviously not tentacles. I would go back in. But yeah, my brain kept telling me they were tentacles. You know, the Kraken has tentacles. So, yeah, that's pretty much... I think it's a healthy instinct to have, to be honest. So, you know, that's what I tell myself anyway. Yeah, Onio says, yeah, nothing phones. Yeah, nothing phones, yeah, those, the ones that have barely any features, they're very bare bones. There's a big market for them, so it's a reaction to the, you know, the level of tech that we've got now. Contingency, practically all B movies are creature features. Oh, the big cockroach. Oh, the big tarantula. Oh, the big legally distinct lizard. Yeah, you're right, to be honest. That's pretty much the entire domain of B movies, isn't it? Speaking of legally distinct giant lizards, Godzilla is, you know, Japanese, but we in Britain, we actually have our own kaiju. He's called, what's he called? Gorgo. They only ever made one film about it, But yeah, Gorgo is a legally distinct giant lizard film. Got it on DVD. It's kind of a rare thing, and it's not a particularly good film, to be honest. But if you haven't seen Gorgo, Grogo, Gorgo, go and check it out. It's a good creature feature. It was made in the 70s, I think. Yeah, really bad film, to be honest, but you know, it's nice to have our own kaiju. I think that's pretty cool. Ukrainian guy, good to have you back. How you doing? Says, hey there, about the cryptids. Are there any cryptids that you're sure exist out there? Me and my brother saw a cryptid once. I don't know which one it was, but we were both sat in my car outside my parents' house. It was night time, and we saw this weird thing run down the pavement, and then it leapt into the bushes, like the hedge at the front of my mum and dad's house. We don't know what it was, but I'll describe it to you, right? We couldn't really make out if it was a lizard or if it was like a mammal, but it was really long. It was sort of snake-like, and it had stubby little legs, but it had a lizard-like face, and it had these sort of things on the side of its head that came out like that, and they ended in two balls, like that. And I think it had one on its head as well. This was about 10, 11 years ago when we saw it, and it had a long tail as well. And we really couldn't decide whether it was lizard-like or mammalian, like a stoat or a weasel or something, but too big for either of them. And it just kind of went down the pavement like that. It looked around, and then it jumped into the hedge at my mum and dad's house. And what we did, because we would look at each other, like, what the hell was that? We were baffled by it. We could not. It was dark, and we just couldn't. The way it moved and everything, we just could not tell what it was. So we both went inside. We told my parents what it was, and then what we decided to do was, me and him, we each went into different rooms, and we both drew what we saw. And when we came back and showed my parents, it was essentially the same thing that we'd drawn. It was that was weird. That kind of sparked my interest in cryptids, because we saw one. We don't know what it was. That was weird. That was a really weird experience. So that one I know exists because I saw it with my own two eyes, and so did my brother. There's another witness as well. As for more well-known ones, I don't know if there are any that definitely exist. I think it's possible that some of them do, because, you know, if they are ones that exist, it's probably things that we think are extinct but aren't now. Because the coelacanth, that's the example everyone uses, but the coelacanth, it's a fish, type of, marine fish, that was thought extinct for a very, very long time, and then they found one alive and well. I believe it was in South Africa where they found it. So I think if any do exist, it'll be ones that people think are currently extinct. Sorry. I don't know if it'll be the dinosaur type ones like Mokele and Bembe that are supposed to still be alive in the Congo in Africa. Probably not those, because they're so big. People would have definitely spotted them by now. If not, on the ground, then they would have spotted them from the air at some point, surely. Certainly. I suppose something that's an ocean-dwelling cryptid, because, there's that old saying, we know more about we know more about space than we do our own oceans. So if there's something that exists in the sea, that could probably be something that's, like the coelacanth, like I said. But I can't really think of any specific ones that I think definitely exist. Bigfoot, no, that's a guy in a costume. The Loch Ness Monster, those are all proven hoaxes. The Chupacabra, that could, I don't know. I think people just think that the Chupacabra is probably just like coyotes with mange or something like that. It's fun to think about, though. I can't really think of any at the moment that I think exist, but it's definitely I'm open to, being proven wrong. I'd like it if Bigfoot existed, to be honest, but hey, I don't know. Let's see. Onio, I really want to do an aquascape tank, but it would be expensive. Yeah, it's a bit of an expensive hobby, to be honest, especially if you want to go the marine route. My parents have a big marine tank in the living room now. It looks brilliant, but they spent quite a bit on it. So it's yeah. If you wanna, if you've got the money, it's a great thing to do. But me, being as poor as a church mouse, I opted for just the one better fighting fish in its own 25-litre tank. I'm not sure what that is in gallons, but it's a good sized tank for it. If you want to go small, it's relatively inexpensive. I spent altogether, the tank was a gift from my parents for my birthday. Altogether, I spent probably about 90 to £100, so about probably around $120. So, and you don't have to get it all at once. You can just get it piecemeal over a couple of months. Really rewarding though. Once you've got all the stuff, it costs virtually nothing. Just got to buy the food basically, and that's it. They don't really need much else. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Oscar says Gorgo. Oh, it's 1961. That was a bit earlier than I thought. Yeah. You know what? That makes more sense. Actually, it looks a lot more like a 60s film rather than a 70s. Because I think I said before, I think it came out in the 70s. 1961. Oni says most people don't know this, but Bigfoot is the leader of the Illumifuti. I didn't know that. Thanks for telling us. That's he's the leader of that. Right, cool. That's you learn something new every day. John Smith. Hello, John. Good to have you. Mink are pretty big. Yeah, I don't think we get mink in this country. Certainly not running around, down the street or anything like that. Could have been a pet, maybe. I mean, it looked sort of like the way it moved and stuff. It was very weasel-like, and minks have a similar body structure, don't they? So, could have been something like that. It could have just been an escaped ferret or something like that, to be honest. Ian says a pine marten. Maybe. I mean, pine marten is, they live in a village, so it's out in the countryside. I suppose a pine marten isn't completely out of the question. It was just quite big, though. I would estimate it was probably around 2 feet long. How big do pine martens get? It could have been a pine marten. I like to think of it as a cryptid that me and my brother saw one dark night 10 or 11 years ago, but it was probably just just a ferret or something like that, probably. Oni says they found more coelacanth colonies since then too. Yeah, I can imagine they're finding them, all over the place now. Now that they know they exist, they'll be looking for them. I just think that was really cool how they thought they were extinct for such a long time. But I suppose, I don't know when they were rediscovered. Was it the 1930s or something? I mean, diving technology before then would have been practically non-existent, so you wouldn't have been able to go in, and unless you got one in a fishing net or something, you just wouldn't know that they were there. So but I guess with the diving technology we've got now, it'd be a heck of a lot easier to find coelacanths. But it's cool that they found them again. And also he says, I like the fearsome critters from folklore. Yeah. Those are always interesting as well. Like fairies. Fairies are not like Tinkerbell. They're actually a bit more vicious than that. The fairies from, I think, Irish folklore are quite, and then, like, again, Irish folklore, like the Banshee as well. It's very, I've got several books on folklore and stuff like that. It's a fascinating subject. Ukrainian guy says, uncanny story. Oh, this will be good. Right. In Ukraine, we had a huge chupacabra craze back in the early 2010s. A lot of news footage, witnesses, stories from regular people. Still not quite sure what it was. Maybe just a media hoax. Right. So there was a lot of chupacabra sightings in the early 2010s. That's interesting. I wonder if there's many now. Or, that's quite cool. That's quite interesting. It seems to be bursts of sightings of things, doesn't there? I think in the 1970s in this country, I think there were UFO sightings practically every day. And then they all disappeared. I wonder why. I wonder why all the chupacabras decided to disappear from Ukraine. John Smith. I can't remember if I said hello to you already, but hello in case I didn't, John. I'm in Yorkshire. That's in England. Believe me, we get mink in the UK. Had one on my boat. It scared the hell out of me. It was the size of a cat, but they move like a snake almost. Oh, okay, yeah. So it may have been a mink that we saw. I've never ever seen one in my life, like before or since. And I spent a lot of time in the countryside. I visit my parents in that village, all the time, very regularly. I didn't know mink was a thing we had here, just because I'd never seen them, I guess. But that's it could have been a mink. Onio says 60 million years is so real dedication to a game of hide and seek, especially for a fish. Yeah, they take their hide and seek very seriously, it would seem. Carl says, do a video on Gorgo. Yeah, maybe I will. That'd be, because, the videos I'm making now are all videos that I just find, about things that I find interesting. Maybe I will do Gorgo. I think it's within the scope of the channel. And it'd be an excuse to watch the film again. Maybe I will do a video on Gorgo at some point. I've got kind of a schedule of videos over the next month, that I'm going to be doing. So probably won't be, within the next month. But yeah, I think I'd probably like to do a Gorgo video at some point. It's a very silly film. The story's not great, but it's got its charm. So I'd probably do a video on that. It would just be fun to do. Right. So, we've been going for about an hour and a quarter. That's not bad. We've done the tier list. We've had a good discussion on a lot of different things. Ukrainian guy says, I believe sightings of the Loch Ness Monster started after people saw the original King Kong movie. Oh, right, okay. It planted something in people's minds. Or maybe the Loch Ness Monster just thought, people have seen King Kong, I'm not going to look that weird in comparison, so it's safe for me to come out. But then people made a big deal about him, so he went back into hiding. Contingency says, alright, it's Breaking Bad. I meant Last and First Men time. Yes, it is. It's Breaking Bad time. I mean Last and First Men time. Breaking Bad First Men time. Yeah, I think we should make a start on this. I'm probably not going to read... the first section of it, not the preface, the introduction is 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll read that, and we'll see how we get on. Now, just to warn you, it's not going to be a flawless reading. I'll probably stumble over my words. I might have to stop and cough and stuff like that. It's not going to be like the audiobooks where they're edited together and stuff. You all probably know that, but just to pre-warn you, it's not going to be flawless. I'll just have a quick drink of water, and we shall begin on reading Breaking Bad in the future. Right. Here we go. Introduction by One of the Last Men. This book has two authors, one contemporary with its readers, the other an inhabitant of an age which they would call the distant future. The brain that conceives and writes these sentences lives in the time of Einstein. Yet I, the true inspirer of this book, I who have begotten it upon that brain, I who influence that primitive being's conception, inhabit an age which, for Einstein, lies in the very remote future. The actual writer thinks he is merely contriving a work of fiction. Though he seeks to tell a plausible story, he neither believes it himself nor expects others to believe it. Yet the story is true. A being whom you would call a future man has seized the docile but scarcely adequate brain of your contemporary and is trying to direct its familiar processes for an alien purpose. Thus, a future epoch makes contact with your age. Listen patiently, for we who are the last men earnestly desire to communicate with you, who are members of the first human species. We can help you, and we need your help. You cannot believe it. Your acquaintance with time is very imperfect, and so your understanding of it is defeated. But no matter. Do not perplex yourselves about this truth, so difficult to you, so familiar to us of a later eon. Do but entertain, merely as a fiction, the idea that the thought and will of individuals future to you may intrude, rarely and with difficulty, into the mental processes of some of your contemporaries. Pretend that you believe this, and that the following chronicle is an authentic message from the last men. Imagine the consequences of such a belief. Otherwise, I cannot give life to the great history which it is my task to tell. When your writers romance of the future, they too easily imagine a progress towards some kind of utopia in which beings like themselves live in unmitigated bliss among circumstances perfectly suited to a fixed human nature. I shall not describe any such paradise. Instead, I shall record huge fluctuations of joy and woe, the results of changes not only in man's environment, but in his fluid nature. And I must tell how, in my own age, having at last achieved spiritual maturity and the philosophic mind, man is forced by an unexpected crisis to embark on an enterprise both repugnant and desperate. I invite you then to travel in imagination through the eons that lie between your age and mine. I ask you to watch such a history of change, grief, hope, and unforeseen catastrophe as has nowhere else occurred within the girdle of the Milky Way. But first, it is well to contemplate for a few moments the mere magnitudes of cosmical events. For, compressed as it must necessarily be, the narrative that I have to tell may seem to present a sequence of adventures and disasters crowded together with no intervening peace. But in fact, man's career has been less than a mountain torrent hurtling from rock to rock, that a great sluggish river, broken very seldom by rapids. Ages of quiescence, often of actual stagnation, filled with the monotonous problems and toils of countless, almost identical lives, have been punctuated by rare moments of racial adventure. Nay, even these few seemingly rapid events themselves were in fact often long drawn out and tedious. They acquire a mere illusion of speed from the speed of the narrative. The receding depths of time and space, though they can indeed be haltingly conceived even by primitive minds, cannot be imaged save by beings of a more ample nature. A panorama of mountains, appears to naive vision almost as a flat picture, and the starry void is a roof pricked with light. Yet in reality, while the immediate terrain could be spanned in an hour's walking, the skyline of peaks holds within it plain beyond plain. Similarly with time. While the near past and the near future display within them depth beyond depth, time's remote immensities are foreshortened into flatness. It is almost inconceivable to simple minds that man's whole history should be but a moment in the life of the stars, and that remote events should embrace within themselves eon upon eon. In your day you have learnt to calculate something of the magnitudes of time and space, but to grasp my theme in its true proportions, it is necessary to do more than calculate. It is necessary to brood upon these magnitudes, to draw out the mind toward them, to feel the littleness of your here and now, and of the moment of civilization which you call history. You cannot hope to image, as we do, such vast proportions as 1 in 1,000 million, because your sense organs, and therefore your perceptions, are too coarse-grained to discriminate so small a fraction of their total field. But you may at least, by mere contemplation, grasp more constantly and firmly the significance of your calculations. Men of your day, when they look back into the history of their planet, remark not only the length of time, but also the bewildering acceleration of life's progress. Almost stationary is the earliest period of the Earth's career. In your moment it seems headlong. Mind in you, it is said, not merely stands higher than ever before in respect of percipience, knowledge, insight, delicacy of admiration, and sanity of will, but also it moves upward, century by century, ever more swiftly. What next? Surely you think there will come a time when there will be no further heights to conquer. This view is mistaken. You underestimate even the foothills that stand in front of you, and never suspect that far above them, hidden by cloud, rise precipices and snow fields. The mental and spiritual advances which, in your day, mind in the solar system has still to attempt are overwhelmingly more complex, more precarious and dangerous than those which have already been achieved. And though in certain humble respects you have attained full development, the loftier potencies of the spirit in you have not yet even begun to put forth buds. Somehow then I must help you to feel not only the vastness of time and space, but also the vast diversity of mind's possible modes. But this I can only hint to you, since so much lies wholly beyond the range of your imagination. Historians living in your day need grapple only with one moment of the flux of time. But I have to present in one book the essence not of centuries, but of eons. Clearly, we cannot walk at leisure through such a tract in which 1,000,000 terrestrial years are but as a year to your historians. We must fly. We must travel as you do in your aeroplanes, observing only the broad features of the continent. But since the flyer sees nothing of the minute inhabitants below him, and since it is they who make history, we must also punctuate our flight with many descents, skimming as it were over the housetops, and even alighting at critical points to speak face to face with individuals. And as the plane's journey must begin with a slow ascent from the intricate pedestrian view to wider horizons, so we must begin with a somewhat close inspection of that little period which includes the culmination and collapse of your own primitive civilization. Wow, that's the introduction there. So, pretty interesting. It looks like, let me just think. So it looks like the the person talking there is a future human who's kind of channeling, well, no, the author who's writing this, Olaf Stapledon, is channeling a future human who's communicating these words to him. And now from the perspective of the author, he is writing a work of fiction, but in actuality it's a future human who's feeding all of this information to him through time, through technology that we can't really imagine, and it looks like that's how they're going to communicate with us. But at the end it said something like they're going to be meeting face to face with individuals through our time. I suppose it's a big theme there was them basically telling us we're not really ready to know what's going to happen, what the truth of everything is. So they're going to feed it to us piecemeal, bit by bit, I suppose. Which is, that's interesting. Let's see, what are your thoughts, everyone? Cool. Cy Deathful. Hello, everyone. Hello. Good to have you. Contingency says, and that was last and first Breaking Bad chapter. Yeah. Walter White hasn't come up yet. I wonder if he'll be in the next chapter. I can't believe that book cover. What, Walter White? Why? What, is it just to get people thinking, what the hell? And just... It's such a weird... I don't know, it's just... Somebody must have been like... it must be like a... I'm going to swear. It must be like a shitpost type thing or something. Yeah, Last and First Men, Breaking Bad. They're an obvious pairing, aren't they? Onio, still a really good reading for On the Spot. Oh, thank you very much. I'm pleased with how that went, actually. I thought I was going to be stumbling over every other word and making a right arse of myself. I thought it was going to be a painful experience for both me and you, but no, I think that went quite well, actually. I suppose I've warmed up the old vocal cords by rambling on for an hour and a quarter before doing that. So hopefully the rest of the reading goes that smoothly, because I'm going to read a little bit, probably maybe at the end of each stream, or maybe at the start of each stream, just to warm up before we get on to the main topic. I don't know. I guess we'll just see how it goes. We'll play it by ear. But thank you for the compliment. Appreciate that. The Contingency says, this sounds like it's going to be like Man After Man / All Tomorrows in one book from the looks of it. Yeah, I mean, it is the direct inspiration for All Tomorrows. That's why I really want to read it, because it's C.M. Kozeman has said this book, and possibly Olaf Stapledon's other book, Star Maker, are the direct inspirations for it, along with Man After Man. That inspired it as well, but Last and First Men is apparently what really gave him the idea to write All Tomorrows. So we're going to see things in this that we may already recognise from All Tomorrows. Be interesting to go through it and see what's there. What did you guys think of that first bit of Last and First Men then? It seems like a future human is communicating to the author. The author thinks he's writing fiction, but he's not. He's writing these things that are being sent through time to him. So the whole book's going to be like that. I mean, it was written in 1930, and they were really, with weird. That was the golden age of weird fiction. H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, Robert E. Howard. All the weird tales and stuff like that. Pulp magazines. That was the golden age of that. They were really, really inventive with their science fiction back then. You kind of look back and you think, would people be thinking of that sort of thing back then? We hadn't even been to space yet in 1930, but they were coming up with all this, they were really, really creative back then. Some brilliant stuff from back then. Yes, Cy Deathful. Oh, he said my name right. Yes, I thought it. I nearly said Eathful, but I thought that doesn't sound right. Cy Deathful sounds cooler, so I thought that was probably what it was. Contingency still. Why Breaking Bad? What's next? War of the Breaking Worlds. The Bad Breaking Time Machine. Yeah, definitely. I think those are. There's probably covers like that. Yeah, all of the. Sorry, I'm getting a bit tired now. What am I trying to say? All of the ones that are. What's it called when they're. Oh, public domain. Yeah, all of the public domain sci-fi books, you're going to start seeing Walter White on the cover. You know, he's going to. It was the blue meth that was the downfall of the Martians. In actuality, I think you'll find. Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about and joined later on, we found on, when I was looking for covers, book covers to put on the thumbnail for Last and First Men, because it's from 1930. There's lots and lots of editions and different covers and stuff. I found this really weird one, and the Contingency saw it as well, of one that's just got Walter White from Breaking Bad on the front for some reason. It's got him in the middle there, and then like two aliens either side of him. It's such a weird thing. Why? I don't know. I don't get it. Oni Yo says, it's neat to think about the new scientific discoveries of the 1930s and how that influenced the fiction, like the recent and highly misunderstood radiation. Yeah. There was what was it? Is The Colour Out of Space, the H.P. Lovecraft one? Is that inspired by radiation? I feel like I may have read that somewhere. A misunderstood idea of radiation, and yeah, a lot of their a lot of the stuff from back then was kind of definitely what they thought of things at the time. But yeah, it is interesting how that the scientific discoveries of the early 20th century did inform the fiction that was written then. You can certainly see the parallels. It's very interesting. Yeah, so right, we went for about an hour and a half. I'd say that's a good amount of time for a live stream, an hour and a half. I'm pleased with how the reading went. Did you guys agree with the tier list? And what did you think of that first chapter of Last and First Men? And no more Breaking Bad jokes. Nah, I'm kidding. You can make Breaking Bad jokes if you like. But it was very, it sets the tone nicely for what's to come in the story. I think it's going to be quite the ride. There is a Last and First Men film, actually. I watched it a while ago, but I don't think it's really much to do with this. It's sort of I think it's only about an hour and 10 minutes long, and it's a narration. I can't remember her name. She's an English actress. I've forgotten her name, but she narrates it, and it's very, I'm sure I'm a bit uncultured. I'll describe it as a bit artsy fartsy, to be honest. You don't see any future humans in it, I don't think. You see the ruins of monuments and things from future humans, but it doesn't have much to do with the book, as far as I can tell. Still a interesting film. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Onio says in the 30s, that is. Yeah, I know what you meant. It was a lot of scientific discoveries were being made in the early 20th century, and it came through in the writing of the fiction. Contingency says, Last and First Men, the movie, doesn't do the book justice at all. I didn't think it did. I mean, based on what I knew about the book, it's not quite the same, is it? Right, so yeah, I think that was a good stream. It was enjoyable. It was fun doing the tier list, and it was fun reading that as well. So yeah, we're going to read a little bit of it every week, either at the start or at the end of the stream, either to kick things off or to, cap it off at the end. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there for now. Thanks everybody for joining. That was a good stream. I appreciate you all coming. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you on Friday for the next video. It's going to be about I don't know if you know about the Thing sequel comic. It came out back in 1992. It's going to be an overview of that. My time is a little bit limited this week, so I wanted to do something a little bit, just a bit lighter workload. So yeah, it's going to be it's still about 18 minutes long, but it's an overview of the Thing sequel comic. So look forward to that on Friday. And of course, the next live stream, Live from the Void number 6, which we same bat time, same bat channel on Monday next week. So yeah, that's enough. Better finish the stream before we all end up tired, punk. Yes, exactly. I'm feeling a bit tired, punk, at the moment. So I better end this stream, punk, and go to bed, punk. If you've never seen it, the must-see is The Man from Earth. Oh, I've not heard of that one. I'll have to, The Man from Earth. Yeah, I'll check that one out. Right, yeah, cheers, guys. This was really good. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next stream. Well, I'll see you in the next video on Friday. And, the next video on Friday, the next stream on Monday. Right, cheers, guys. Take care. See you later.